Thanks so much. Again, welcome to the October 2024 West, Midwest, and Southwest meeting. Our theme today is Stronger Together. I'm Nicole Schmidt. I am the regional organizer for the Midwest. I'm joined by two of my fantastic colleagues. I'll let them introduce themselves. David, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I am David Gist, coming to you from Pasadena, California, and I'm the organizer for 11 Western states, beautiful outdoorsy places. And I've been with Bread longer than anyone could imagine.
Those of us in the Midwest are jealous of your consistent sunshine. And Ken, would you like to introduce yourself for the Southwest?
Yes, hello. I was going to say good morning, but I know it's afternoon for many of you. I'm Ken Fujimoto. I'm the organizer for the Southwest, and I'm glad to be here and glad to see all of you.
Great. Thanks, Ken. And I will jump into our agenda for the day. But before I do that, for those of you who might be new, I just want to give you a little overview of Bread for the World. So, Bread for the World is a Christian advocacy organization urging U.S. decision makers to do all that they can to pursue a world without hunger. Our mission is to educate and equip people to advocate for policies and programs that can help end hunger in the U.S. and around the world.
Yeah.
And if you guys could take a moment to make sure you're muted, that would be really helpful for our call today. We've got a full agenda. We're really excited to see all of you that you've taken your time out in the middle of your day. We're going to open in prayer, and then we'll do updates on in-district meetings and listening sessions. I know many of you across the country have been working really hard on in-districts. We'll share some legislative updates. Our colleague Charles from our Government Relations Department will be joining us for that. And then we're going to share more about the Nourish Our Future campaign. We're going to give an update, talk about the issues, and we want to hear back from you if you affirm this platform. So we'll be sharing that, really excited to unveil that with you. And then we're going to move into breakout groups and just use this time to connect with one another and to talk about how we can build support for the Nourish Our Future campaign. Then we'll talk next steps and we'll close in prayer. So, Ken, we have another special guest that I know you'd like to introduce.
Yes. Um, I'd like to introduce Stephen Reeves. He's the executive director for Fellowship Southwest. He's on the Bread board, and he's going to help lead our meeting today. He's got some major parts in the meeting. So I'm very honored and pleased to introduce Stephen Reeves for the opening prayer and then for his parts later on. Stephen?
Thank you, Ken. I appreciate that. Hello, everybody. Thanks so much for being here this afternoon. As we begin in prayer, look, I will first read this Hebrews passage you see in front of you to ground us in this time, this moment together. Let us hold fast the confession of our hope without wavering, for he who promised is faithful. And let us consider how to stir up one another to love and good works, not neglecting to meet together, as is the habit of some, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day drawing near. Now join me in prayer. God of hope, we give you thanks this day for your creation and your sustaining abundance. We are grateful for this time together and for Bread for the World, their history, their mission, their staff, and all the supporters. In this hour, be with us and help us stir one another up to love and good works. We believe, O Lord, that you provide more than enough food for all. Guide us as we try to do our part to feed the hungry, just as Jesus called us to do. It's in his name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Stephen. And David, I'll pass it to you.
Well, good morning and good early afternoon to everyone, and a very early morning to Pastor Kimberly in Hawaii, who got up at to join us at 7 a.m. this morning. So round of applause there. Bravo. Um, as you know, Brett has been carrying out in-district meetings. You all have been parts of in-district meetings these past months, as well as listening sessions. And we've learned a lot from our meetings with legislators and their staff. We had a terrific meeting in Colorado in September with the congresswoman there, who's in kind of a purple district and is a member of the Ag Committee, so she's important on the Farm Bill. And we were able to find out why she voted this way, what she plans to do next, and set up plans for her to become a little bit more of a champion, we hope, in 2025 around Nourish Our Future. But there are a lot of meetings, and I think we've got some numbers that'll come up in future slides. Um, can we go to the next slide? Nope, good. Well, let's go back then. But we also had listening sessions, and that was really, really important to hear from you all about the formation and the consideration of different issues that Brett is looking at for the platform of Nourish Our Future. And we're going to get into that later. But I did want to share one example from that. We had a terrific listening session with some folks from Argentina. And of course, we had to do that remotely on Zoom. But a couple of women testified about how they have been preparing meals every day for children in need. And it was very moving testimony, and it was wonderful to see how committed they are to the children who are food insecure in Buenos Aires. At the same time, we also heard from folks in Argentina about climate change and how climate has affected life there. And we don't think of Argentina as, of course, the poorest country in Latin America. And at the same time, climate change is still having a devastating effect there. And they shared stories of flooding that would then flood the sewers and then wipe out the sewage system and make a lot of water unsafe. So this is flooding that didn't used to happen in previous years, but is happening now. So anyway, we did hear a lot about what's going on around in Argentina and around the world in various listening sessions, and that was helpful as we move forward as an organization and a movement to consider what can we do globally to address hunger in Nourish Our Future. Um, Ken, I think you might have a story about campus hunger.
It's they were unavailable today, so I apologize about that.
Well, I can jump in.
Sure.
We have an in-district story, and we had a really interesting experience. And I'm going to invite my friend Steve Noble to join this conversation. Um, but we set up a meeting with Senator J.D. Vance's office. And right before that, we had some severe weather that really impacted our coordination of those efforts. A lot of people in the area were left without power, and that meant that we needed to move our meeting online to open it up to folks from outside of the Cleveland region, so that more advocates could join that weren't impacted by the weather. But Steve, could you share a little bit about how that one meeting turned into two meetings?
Yes. Hi everybody, Steve Noble from Hudson, Ohio, PCUSA. We began with a standard sort of face-to-face meeting, but with everything that was going on, we turned into Zoom. One of the problems was we've had a number of churches around that have done the offering of letters. We had a whole bunch of letters that we wanted to share with J.D. Vance's office. But we were obviously unable to do that over Zoom. So the aide from J.D. Vance's office made a gracious invitation. She lives in Lakewood, Ohio, and said, "Hey, how about if we just meet at this coffee shop, and I can pick up the letters there." So we arranged to have a meeting that turned out to be very, very productive. We've established a relationship with her, and we're able to give her the letters that have been collected and send her back to the senator's office, hopefully to talk praises of Bread for the World.
Great. Thank you, Steve. I love this story because it's just such a perfect example of that relationship building work that really sets apart Bread for the World. We don't want to just, push our agenda, but we actually want to treat these staffers like they're human beings and get to know them and why they do the work that they do. And this was just a wonderful example of that. So thanks for being a part of that work. Great. And now I'll invite our colleague Charles to join with some updates on the farm bill. Zach, do you want to move the slide ahead for us? Thank you. Charles?
Awesome, awesome. Thank you, Nicole. Hello to everyone that's on this call. I'm happy to be here. I'm Charles Williams. I am the Senior Domestic Policy Analyst for Bread for the World here in DC. Just here to deliver a quick update on our recent work on the Farm Bill, a little bit on the Child Tax Credit, and on WIC. Now, as you all may know or may not know, Congress remains out on recess until after the presidential election. However, the government relations team continues to meet with various offices while we wait for things to pick back up in November. We are currently focusing on meeting with staff members whose portfolios include agriculture and appropriation, just to provide them with a refresher on what we're doing, on our food security priorities, and on our policy change agendas, as well as gathering intel to bring back to our advocates about the potential congressional landscape during the upcoming lame duck sessions. Now, we are 19 days away from the presidential election, which will determine which priorities make it to the floor during the remainder of the year due to members voting who may not return next Congress. Now let's talk Farm Bill. The negotiations for the Farm Bill are still ongoing, with there basically being three main issues and challenges keeping it from moving forward. The first is SNAP and nutrition program disputes. One of the central points of contention is the Thrifty Food Plan update, which increased SNAP benefits. Some Democrats want to preserve these increased benefits, while some Republicans are looking to roll it back to reduce the overall cost of the bill. This debate is stalling progress as both sides try to balance the bill's nutrition and agriculture priorities. The second is commodity price relief and risk management. With rising food production costs and downturn in commodity prices, farmers are pushing for a farm bill that better addresses their financial risks. And the third concern is the budget concerns, right? The biggest point of contention had been the actual costs of the Farm Bill. The Congressional Budget Office, or CBO, has projected that the 2024 Farm Bill would increase government spending significantly, which has triggered a debate about how do you fund it without increasing the deficit. And so this has also slowed the process as lawmakers as they negotiate fiscal responsibility versus necessary agriculture support. Now, clearly, negotiators still have a lot of work to do, but there have been some glimmers of hope and some signs that good progress is still being made. Government relations and org spoke to the office of Senator Bozeman, a ranking member of the Senate Agriculture Committee and key Farm Bill negotiator, just yesterday. They confirmed that while it's possible a Farm Bill could pass during the lame duck session, which again is the window between the election and the beginning of the next Congress on January 3rd, 2025, is still really, really uncertain. The ranking member's office also specifically thanked Bread for the World and its advocates for its work in pushing to get a farm bill passed, and added that they will be calling on us to get it across the finish line. I think this was a strong endorsement of our work and a testament to all the great work that you're doing out in the field. Let's move on to WIC. WIC is funded through December 20th, 2024, thanks to a continuing resolution passed by Congress. However, long-term funding has not yet been secured, and so we're working to ensure that any final agreement on appropriations include full WIC funding, and that it maintains updates to the WIC food package. As we look ahead to fiscal year 2025, we expect WIC appropriations to see a modest increase in funding. reflecting ongoing recognition of the program's critical role in supporting low-income families. However, the final appropriation numbers, of course, would depend on the outcome of current negotiations in Congress, where there's concern over potential cuts related to other nutrition programs. Bread and its partners are advocating for funding that not only addresses rising food costs, but also for legislation that expands access for underserved populations like the Modern WIC Act. We will be monitoring funding developments closely as the landscape could significantly change post-election. And we will also maintain a sustained and proactive approach in our advocacy efforts that will be essential to ensuring that WIC remains adequately funded and positioned to meet any challenges ahead. And last but certainly not least is the child tax credit. Now, while there hasn't been any congressional chatter lately, both presidential candidates' campaigns have mentioned the CTC, and they've made it a core principle within their family and economic policy platforms. So we were encouraged and pleased to see the CTC brought up and discussed during the vice president debate earlier this month. And we see a critical opportunity to move the CTC forward next year as several temporary tax laws are due to expire and are negotiated upon. Of course, whoever wins the presidency will have a major impact on what the CTC will ultimately look like if passed. But both campaigns have released their CTC specifics. VP Harris proposes a $6,000 CTC for families in their child's first year, targeting middle and lower income households to alleviate financial pressure during early childhood and early parenthood. This expansion would build on the pandemic era $3,600 CTC. And Senator Vance offers a $5,000 CTC that emphasizes working class families and promotes work incentives. And so while we're thrilled that both candidates' campaigns express support for CTC expansion, as you can see, their approaches will differ significantly. And with that, that wraps up my brief legislative update. I am going to drop my email in the chat for anyone who may have additional questions now or in the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Charles. I'm hearing in that update a lot of reasons for us to have hope as we move into this next year. Some really exciting things happening around the child tax credit, especially, and WIC. So with that, we're going to turn things back over to Stephen.
I'm going to go upstairs just a minute.
To share about Nourish Our Future.
Thank you, Nicole. I appreciate that. And thank you, Charles, for that update and all your good work. Very much appreciated. I have the exciting honor of giving you all an update on the Nourish Our Future campaign, which is rolling right along. It's an honor to be a part of this campaign, and it's something that the staff and the board have been working on for a long time, and we're moving forward with it. And so we want to tell you where we are. If we'll advance next slide. All right, here's the timeline. And as was mentioned earlier, you folks are kind of bread insiders. You know what's been going on. You've been a part of this all along, but I want to give you just an overview of where we've been, where we are, and where we're going. So we started back in December with a campaign and a draft platform being introduced. And then we had all those listening sessions that we just, that I'll talk more about in a minute, around the policy solutions. And now we are in the middle section there, listening sessions, and concluding the policy platform, which we'll discuss today and hopefully get your affirmation of. And then in a month or so, I'll join with the board and with the staff to finalize and approve what's been presented. And then we'll launch on February 4th of next year. And you're going to hear a lot more about that date the rest of this meeting. So if we'll go to the next slide, I want to be sure you see what we've done so far, more about these listening sessions, just how deeply the staff and others have listened and engaged. We've had over 99 listening sessions. Maybe by today it's been 100. Can we just round it up to 100? Surely we've had some more. But we've had those across the country and in Puerto Rico, including 16 on college campuses and 5 with an international focus, which is obviously an important part of our work. over 1,300 individuals, many of them are you on this call, have participated. So these have been BRED members, friends, pastors, nonprofit leaders, college students, and faculty. And many of them have a lived experience with food insecurity. It's so important to listen to those voices and make sure we are on the right track, and not just assume we know what the solutions are. So we're so grateful for all those who participated so far this year and the voices that have spoken into this process. We'll go to the next slide. Let's talk about this policy platform. I'm going to spend some time going through this because this is what we really want to think about today as we're meeting. This is where we've come down. There's so much that BRED does and so many things that are important, but for the future, for this campaign, this is what we're going to focus on. So the first is fully fund and modernize WIC for all eligible participants, urging Congress to fully fund WIC now and in the future. Pass the Modern WIC Act, which is would strengthen the program and make it easier for families to sign up. Obviously, it's one thing to have a program; it's another thing to have a program people can actually access. And so that's an important part of WIC. The second, you heard Charles talking about this a little bit already, is expand the child tax credit that prioritizes cutting child poverty and ending hunger. We would include full refundability and or creative mechanisms that allow for more of the lowest income families to benefit and allow the credit to be received in monthly payments rather than lump sum, which would have a better impact on reducing food insecurity. This is something that is something that I really focus on and think about a lot. So many of you may know that towards the end of the pandemic, we briefly did expand the child tax credit, and it was wildly successful. So this is not some pie in the sky dream that we hope might work if it passes. This is based on evidence of what we've seen recently. Obviously, unfortunately, those were allowed to expire, but I think with the recent experience and what lawmakers have seen, this is really important to be able to point to and say this actually works. And finally, increased funding for global nutrition for children, provide $300 million for nutrition and global health programs for USAID. We care about hunger across the world, and our greatest outlet and our ability to do this is through the USAID program. And so we want to make sure that we focus on folks all across the world. And so that is the proposed policy platform. And I think it's, as we think about this Nourish Our Future campaign, obviously we care about the future of BRED, but more so we care about the future of those facing food insecurity. And these are the points that we think have real promise to address hunger, both here and worldwide. And so at this point, if this seems like a good place to you and your knowledge and what you've seen, for this to be a platform for the campaign, we would love some sign of affirmation from you. If you've got your camera on, you can do a thumbs up. If you don't have your camera on, you can do one of the little thumbs ups there at the bottom. All right. Did I miss a slide in there? Sorry, y'all. Did I skip one? We can go back if I need to. Oh, yes. Okay. We address that differently. So go right to the affirmation. I'm seeing lots of thumbs from the people I see. So we appreciate that. So now I think I need to turn to seeing all thumbs. I will turn to the what's next for the campaign.
I think David's going to take care of that last.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Then I'm off the hook.
No, that's right.
So,
If we could go back, there we go. Just want to see that slide. I just wanted to jump in and explain,
thank you.
For those of you that participated in listening sessions, there was a lot of energy and interest in addressing college hunger. And though it may sound a little different since we were talking mostly about addressing childhood hunger here and overseas, but college hunger, our grown children, has a role in that. However, as we discern what's happening with Congress, we were not finding a legislative vehicle that made college hunger actionable. And so that's why it was not among the three planks of the policy platform. However, we have it on screen here to remind you that Bread for the World is not turning its back on college hunger. We're not going to disregard it or just say, oh, wave our hands and say, never mind. We are going to be working on that, but not necessarily at the offering of letters level. So when you're talking with your churches, that policy platform and your campuses, your communities, that policy platform looking at WIC and child tax credit and global nutrition, those are really the three pillars there. But at the same time, we're going to be looking for opportunities in 2025 to move on college hunger and to see if there is a viable piece of legislation that can be introduced. We want to make sure that it's viable. We want to make sure that it's bipartisan, and we want to make sure that it's going to have a real impact. So that's what we wanted to share with this slide, that we're not giving up on college hunger, but it's not the same place in our campaign. So I'll stop there.
We saw a lot of affirmations of this platform and a lot of excitement. And so now we're going to move into breakout sessions. And we have facilitators that are assigned to those rooms. We're going to spend a little bit of time doing the rounds, and we're going to have a little icebreaker in that group. And then we're going to be asking you if you'll commit to attending the Nourish Our Future launch on February 4th. And I've snuck it into the chat already. At one point, I'm going to sneak it in again in case you're just so excited and want to register right now. But we're also going to ask you to make a commitment to bringing at least 2 people from your church or campus or other organizations. So I want you to be thinking of who you will bring. But we'd love to take a minute just to do some report backs of what you were hearing and the types of commitments people were able to make. And so if you were leading one of those breakout sessions and you're willing to share kind of what you heard, we'd love to hear it. Steve, can I call on you first? I like to pick on my Ohio people.
Hey, we had a group of bread superstars in our breakout room today, and to distill it down to really what it came down to is everybody seems to be really enthusiastic about Nourish Our Future. There are a number of people that were a little bit late in, and so we went over just the elements of the platform, and everybody pretty much is a thumbs up, and hopefully we'll commit to coming to the big launch.
Thank you, Steve. Larry, how about you? Oh, you're muted or frozen.
I don't know for sure.
There we go.
Okay. We had a good group. People shared, in many cases, a little saying that they keep on their desk. I shared a phrase that I add to my email accounts that I began using when I became more active in bread. We've had, I think, everyone but one, I think, committed to registering for the launch on February the 4th, which is really good. People were willing to make a commitment to invite at least 2 people. I committed to inviting 5. Steve Moon invited to 3. So as we discussed among ourselves, how do you get people to be involved? I think we all agreed that being an example is the best way to start. You can't ask people to do something if you're not willing to do it yourself.
That's a good word. Thank you for that, Larry. Diane, how about you? How was your group?
We had a wonderful group. There were 10 of us, and people were happy to share. Many people shared food, which of course is key to being noticed. We had one person who talked about the importance of public policy, which is what we're about. That it's by our actions and by the phone calls we make, the letters we write, the emails we send, that legislation that empowers people to actually access the food that they need for everyday lives is critical. And so then I encouraged everyone to register, and said that I would be registering myself and bringing 5 people along with me. And I'm hoping everybody else will follow through. Thanks.
5 people. Awesome. Thank you, Diane. What an example. Beth, how about you? How was your group?
Our group was wonderful. We had, I think, about 13. Everyone shared. We had some great items like coffee cups with wonderful sayings on them that just tied right in with our focus, and just a lot of great sharing about why we're all involved in this kind of thing. And then we got quite a few people committing. I think we shared a little bit too long, so we were watching the time go down, and everybody was quickly trying to get their in the chat how many people they registered. But everybody basically that did register or were able to get it in there, we're bringing at least 2 people. And I think everyone in the room was committing to come. So it was just a really great session.
That's great. I'm feeling more and more excited just hearing you guys talk. Kimberly, how about you? How was your group?
We had a great group as well. One of my favorite things that was shared is surprisingly a pen that was a reminder about writing the letters and how important that is. And, we had people commit to coming and to bringing people with them, but we also talked about ways to recruit our networks to register. And I shared that I'm part of the Hawaii district of the United Methodist Church, and I was going to share it there. And then another person said, well, what about, like the social justice committee, like of the, of your church? And I was like, wow, that could go big, like all the way up the food chain, just to make sure that, the information gets out to more people. And so we really thought, think big when you're considering the networks that you have.
That's wonderful. That's also a good word. Think big. Great. David, how was your group?
Our group was good, and one of the things that we talked about was having a QR code, and the QR code is actually in the chat. So Alice, they've I think I think Zach actually dropped it in the chat, and then Ken dropped it in the chat. So if we go to the chat, we should see a QR code. You can scan that, and that will be a great resource. But we want to make sure that everyone has those resources. So we talked about kind of doing a round one now where we can invite people, and then a round two after the election, because the elections are such a distraction and people have a lot of attention on that. So round one, let's get people registered and use that QR code. And then round two, after the elections, we can say the next big campaign is going to be launching February 4. And we talked about the notion of a campaign having kind of a beginning and an end in a defined term. So we're not saying we're asking you to be part of a weekly meeting for the rest of your life. No, no, just to be part of this campaign and launch this campaign. So
I like that a lot, thinking about that in 2 parts, because I've run into that a lot. There's a lot of people here in Ohio that are just so focused on election efforts, as they should be. We affirm that, but it's a great reminder to think about your outreach, not just doing it now, but doing it again later as well. Ken, I think you might be the last breakout group. How was your group, Ken?
I don't think Meg has checked in yet either.
Oh yeah, we don't want to miss Meg.
It's actually Stephen. Stephen led the group.
Oh, okay. Stephen, how was your group?
Well, we were a great group also. Lots of good items, fruit and food and pens and multiple representations of the world, globes and maps that are to remind folks of folks who are food insecure all the way across the world. We had a lot of folks affirming their if they're going to register and some ideas on how to bring some other folks along with them. I will say, since we're such a knowledgeable group, we had some folks asking some tough questions about the policy and when are we going to get down to the nitty gritty a little bit more than just the slideshow version of the priorities, but when do we get to see more? And so, we made sure they understood we're going to have to address it at the board again, but then that there is definitely more meat on the bone there, that there's definitely more details in the policy that'll be forthcoming. So it was a solid group and conversation.
Great. February 4th. That's when you get more. So register if you haven't registered. And Meg, I'm sorry, I misspoke earlier. I missed you. Meg, would you like to share?
No problem, Nicole. We had a fantastic group and I put their picture in the group. Every one of them, I'd like to meet with coffee and have a support group to get this going for February 4th. So in fact, I have a new friend here in Oakland and we're going to try to get together. So we had great testimonies of family situations. We had pictures of Bread for the World mugs and the fish. People are missing that in the logo, by the way. And a very good commitment to try to make this thumbs up on most people. And I just think this whole model could be something that we do after the election with our community as stage one. Do something with a small food pantry and do this and get them energized, and then it'll grow from there. So I know a lot of great ideas. They were all coming from our room too. Thank you.
Great. I'm loving this energy. So while Zach brings the slides back, I'm going to show you guys real quick. This was my item. I don't know if you can see very well. This is my mug. It's Mr. Rogers. And I was going to share him in my breakout group because of his love for children and his commitment to being a good neighbor. It's my favorite mug. So, all right. So I know you guys are anxious for those next steps. And the first thing, most important thing, is to register for the Nourish Our Future campaign on the 4th. And we want you to be thinking about who you could bring. So if you are willing to commit at least sharing this with 2 more people and having them register as well, we'll have those links available in the follow-up so that you can share that with your communities and circles of influence. And again, just be thinking about your network beyond maybe your church. Is there a group that you interact with regularly that you could also share this invitation with? So just be thinking. I know you guys are all people of influence and have wider networks than you might think. So our goal is to have over 1,000 participants at our campaign launch. It's a really ambitious goal, but we believe with your help that we can get there. So share far and wide. So I'll give you a minute if you haven't had a chance already to register. You can use your smartphone and click the QR code here to register.
You want to do it?
Yeah, it says click here.
So if you pull up your phone, if you pull up the camera, if you're not familiar with a QR code, if you open your camera, the link will pop up in your camera.
And let me just chime in while everyone's getting their phone out and scanning onto that image there, or if you did it from the chat. My apologies if we didn't get to you. I don't think we were able to cover every breakout room and have a report, but anyway, thank you for what you shared, and we will be following up later to hear it. But my apologies if we missed your group.
Wonderful.
So just put that up there.
Can I add another suggestion while we're waiting?
Sure.
I found that having a focus group of my grandchildren, 7 grandchildren, and having a focus group with them, actually I had it with them about the election, but gave me lots of great information that I really didn't know about and really did not understand. Even though I thought I did, and I had committed to them before the meeting that I would listen, I wouldn't talk. And they really started talking and gave me information that I really needed to know and didn't know. But I also got them jazzed about it. And I also got them to just volunteer to do stuff, mostly to teach me how to use social media. And so in their teaching me how to use social media, they started using their social media more for what I wanted them to do it for. So I'm definitely going to have another focus group with them about this, and hopefully it will work. But really, the young kids know so much more than we know they know, and they are so much better at networking than I certainly was at their age. And so it's just a really great resource if you commit to listen
and not try to influence them, but just listen to what they have to say. They'll take you where you want to go.
I love that. I think that's a great idea. And one of the things I've always loved about Bread for the World is how family friendly we are. And Alice, you know this, from your time at Bread during our advocacy summit. It kids are welcome, and my kids have attended those events. And my children have had a really great awareness of what their friends at school are going through, and the kid at the lunch table who maybe didn't have a sandwich or didn't have anything with them that day. There's a lot we can learn from them, and they have a lot to offer. So thank you for flagging that. Great. Well, I think
I
if
do want
we're
to say my grandkids are all voting age, but all age kids will really
That's great.
tell you a lot.
Even better if they're voting age. That's fantastic. So looking ahead, we're going to have some exciting things coming up that we'll talk more about at future meetings. We'll have some petitions that we'll be sharing around. Our offering of letters and materials will be launching after the campaign launch. And if you are interested, this year's our 50th anniversary at Bread for the World, and we're going to have hopefully our biggest advocacy summit yet. So you can mark your calendars for June 9th through the 11th for that gathering as well. And David, I'll pass it to you.
Well, thank you for staying on today. Thank you we've run a minute or two over, but let's close in prayer with the idea that we're kind of looking at a campaign ahead amidst other campaigns, but I hope this campaign reflects God's love and our commitment to speak out in God's name around advocacy. So let's close with this prayer, this passage from Hebrews first. Let us hold fast the confession of our hope without wavering, for he who promised is faithful. And let us consider how to stir up one another to love and good works, not neglecting to meet together, as is the habit of some, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day drawing near. So in prayer, let me say, Holy God, and our Lord Jesus, please help us to encourage one another. Please lead us to feel hope, to experience hope, and to express hope amidst times that can feel hopeless. Our hope is in you, Lord, and with that, may we find encouragement in one another. Let us lift up our voices and do your will and please you. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
And Mary Claire, I see you have a hand up. Do you want to say something here?
Yes. In my group, one thing that came up was that people wanted to have a summary of this platform to share
Good.
when they talk to people. And I'm assuming that's being sent out.
I likewise assume it.
Yep. We'll get that for you.
Great.
Absolutely.
Everyone, thank you so much for being on. Thank you for spending your time with us. I do think we can think about this in terms of stages, getting a couple of people to register now, ourselves to register, getting a couple more people to register now, and then another round of it after the election. And as people in the Southeast are rebuilding, and as people around the country are dealing with whatever the results of this election is come to be. But I think there will be a lame duck session of Congress. There will be things that we can do and where we can be positive and fruitful and encourage members of Congress, some of whom will be leaving Congress, to vote the right ways around issues that help hungry people. So let's hold that hope.
Thanks, everybody.
Everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.